Welcome to Facing the Nation for November 3rd, 2023. I want to thank you once again for being a part of this program. And of course, as always, I will ask you to tell a friend, tell your neighbor. Facing the Nation is on. Of course, we're on Channel 6. We're also on all of our Facebook platforms, the People's National Congress Reform page, Facebook, the APNU AFC page on Facebook, and of course on YouTube, the People's National Congress Reform page. So call up somebody and let them know that we're on Facing the Nation today. Today, I want to have, a more interactive conversation with my audience. I want to be able to view your comments and let's talk about it. But of course, before we get into that, there is a bit of information that I would like to share before we get into the meat of the program, where we discuss issues that were raised over the weekend, discuss certain issues, and also for us to interact, for me to interact with you here on our pages. I would have my operator start today's program out with a short clipping of an engagement of the leader of the opposition. I believe it was last weekend in Berbice, where he spoke to the persons attending the opening of the Town Week in regard to the issue of Venezuela. Let's take a look.
The Tongue Week is a celebration, but it must also be an education. There is a significant need for us to ensure that our young people understand our history, understand our culture, and believe in themselves that education is critical, and if they take it, they have taken in one of the tools and means of emancipation. But it would be remiss of me if I do not speak to an existing situation that needs our attention. We can talk about the tongue of Amsterdam, but the tongue of Amsterdam is part of Guyana, and Guyana is on the threat. And therefore, I must speak, however briefly, to the issue of the Guyana-Venezuela territorial complex. My friends, I believe there is a lacuna, there is a gap that we have to fill. Those of us who went to school in the 60s, 70s, and 80s understand. But in recent times, we have not been educating our young people on the territorial controversy with Venezuela. I want to call on the government to recognize that it is critical that our young people be educated vis-a-vis the Guyana-Venezuela territorial controversy, because it is only through education you will develop the passion to defend your society. Permit me to run into history, however brief. We must make it very clear that Essequibo belongs to us. We must make it very clear that they will not have one blade of grass. But as we say that, we must have the facts behind it. The issue of Ghana's territory has been settled since 1899 by the arbitral award. And since then, what we know as Guyana today has been Guyana and will continue to be Guyana. It is opposite for me to point out to you that they having agreed in 1899 to the arbitral award, let us assume that they didn't agree. They must then tell us why in 1905 they went to the Boundary Commission and signed accepting that these are the borders and that this territory belongs to us. So every child must know, not only has the award given us the Essequibo, but Venezuela in 1905 signed and accepted the territory as defined by the Commission. May I hasten to point out that in 1931, we established what was called the Trijunction Point, the point at which Venezuela, Guyana, and Brazil meet. And that speaks directly to the lands we own now. When Guyana was moving towards independence in 1962, Venezuela contended that there was some deal between those involved in the arbitral award. And in so doing, they contended the arbitral award of 1899 was null and void. We rejected that. Before they signed the Geneva Agreement, which makes it clear that we must settle this issue by peaceful means. The onus is on Venezuela to prove that some deal existed. We know of none. What we know is that Venezuela accepted every.
Thank you very much, operator. And as you heard, we had a bit of discussion there on the issue of the border controversy with Guyana and Venezuela. And, the leader of the opposition outlined some of the important details or facts to the issue in what was done many, many years ago to establish what we know as Guyana. And I think one of the important things that we as a people need to be doing is continuously educating ourselves, educating our children on this issue, because I'll say to you, in Venezuela, the smallest child knows about the claim of Essequibo. So we have to as well ensure that our children and we understand the issues relating to it and continue to, um, talk about it, talk to our children about it, and keep our claims coming correctly. In the same line, I noted, and as I said, we'll discuss a few issues that would have arisen over the week. And of course, I'll be checking my comments. Any other thing that you want to talk about here today, we'll talk about it as well. As I said when I started the show, I want today's program to be an interactive one in our comment section with you and myself today. But as we are still talking about the issue of Venezuela, I noted in the news this week the vice president is now admitting and stating that the word policia across police vehicles were misguided, to be exact. The word that he used was misguided, and that they have now been instructed somehow to remove them. I mean, I'm happy to hear that we're at that point because, we've been talking about this for quite a while and it is something that we deem unacceptable, especially when we are going through the issues that we are with the border controversy and we have such a thing happening. But it leaves you to wonder what is the thinking or what was the plan and who was responsible for such a thing even happening in the first place. Because if you have noted in the last month or so, we have really had an escalation of issues now with Venezuela, them having a date of December 3rd for a referendum. The government has now gone to the ICJ as well to protest the issue of the referendum and the questions being asked in the referendum. We're also seeing, if I am to give an update on what we know thus far, is that the opposition and the government are working to have a motion or a movement in parliament on the issue. And, the talks have begun in that regard. And, a lot is happening. It says the ICJ is now set for November 14th to deal with the issue of dealing with the referendum, etc., that is being spoken about in Venezuela. So we know that that is happening, and we know that the opposition has said that they will stand as one with the government against Venezuela threats in this regard. So we are seeing movement between the opposition and government to work on these issues. I really can't see. My operator is showing me something on the screen there. Let me see if I can see it. Oh, so yes, this is what I was trying to read there. It says ICJ set for November 14th to hear Guyana's case to block Venezuela's referendum on Essequibo. So this is the latest news in that regard. We know that they are looking for a date. They have set this date, and a hearing will be held for that. Um, I'm seeing someone here saying in the comments, he said, remove and replace with final letters. Oh, what a joke. I believe she's referring to some other part where the VP would have stated, I think I heard that part where he said, when the person in the crowd said to him, they travel and they don't see any other country who is English speaking, putting other languages. And he said that, he travels to Europe and he sees fine print of different languages, etc., which and by no means at this time, with all that is happening, should Guyanese accept such a thing happening. I want to as well, coming off of the issue of Venezuela at this point, there are a lot of other things that have been happening this week. And one of the very important things I want to batting on, and I hope next week to have my guests to be able to deal with this issue a bit more. We have been seeing a rise, and we talk about the heavy handedness of the government, political interference at all levels, and we are seeing more of this. I must bring the case, the issue of the Pleasance NDC. As many of you would know, we would have had a tussle in the local government election, and eventually, what was decided by GCOM is that the PPPC would have a one-seat majority at that NDC. And ever since, there have been so many issues. But the issue that is being raised of recent during this week, we know that the overseer for that NDC, after the PPP came in, would have resigned, and left that seat vacant. We know that the chairman, from all understanding, some family member of his was trying to have that position filled, which saw, a pushback from members of that NDC and, of course, the village of Pleasance. And they then placed the most senior person at the office to act as assistant. And now we're hearing and we're waiting to confirm that the minister who now has responsibility for local government, Anand Prasad, has took it upon himself and would have not remembered that there is a functioning local government commission currently, and he has now decided that he is going to move around overseers from different NDCs. We're told NDC, another overseer, is to be placed there. And, instead of following the procedures and the SOPs that were set out by the local government commission and the appropriate authority on issues of that nature, to have ads being placed and persons apply for the position of overseer, we're seeing the minister who is responsible for local government stepping in on his own, not consulting with the local government commission, but deciding that he can decide who sits where, when they sit, and how they sit. And, when we continue to talk about, this government seeking to have a one party state setup, some people think that we're overemphasizing and we're going it over and over again. But every single day we're seeing more cases like these. This is a case, and the case that I'm raising now is something that is very current. In fact, the information that we would have received would have been between last evening and this morning in this regard. And it is totally out of order and reminiscent of any minister, more so the minister who should understand that there is a local government commission set out to handle those kind of issues. And he is now stepping in and making political moves rather than allowing the systems that are put in place to work. We constantly for commissions to be put in place and all these other things to happen in regard to democracy at every guardrails being broken down by this government. And this is just one of the latest issues. I'm also being told this morning that there are similar issues in Region 2, that there are similar issues in Region 3, where the minister himself is intervening. And at this stage, I want to call on the minister and those persons who are hearing and they know they have a hand in and a responsibility to desist from doing that kind of thing. Because what I will tell you, as you know, my village doesn't take things lightly in those regards. And we will not accept the minister deciding and imposing persons on the NDC the way GCOM has already done in our view, and we will not accept it. So at this point, I think it will be beneficial for the minister to allow the appropriate channels and the appropriate SOPs to be followed in these regards, because we are going to have issues. You cannot continue to push on persons in a negative manner and believe that you will continue to see the same results every single time. So I thought I should raise that issue here today. And I see here someone said Jagdio is the culprit behind the Policia thing, and now he turns around and throws Hickins and Ben under the bus. Well, this is nothing new to the vice president, he is very accustomed, and he's increasingly deciding that he will put people under the bus, so to speak, when it comes to these issues. We saw just recently the GoSci matter with the $214 million US issue with Exxon based on the audit. And, he did the same thing. He sought to throw an ordinary public servant under the bus when we know that, Jack Dio has a way in handling these matters, and we know that he holds some amount of responsibility in terms of what happened in the oil and gas sector. So instead of blaming himself, one Barrett, and number two Barrett, the minister Barrett, he decided that he would, put the blame on an ordinary public servant. And now they're telling us, so that they're taking, I think it is what, 15 or 15 days pay away from this public servant as compensation. And one wonders if, if those 15 days, if this man is so responsible, would compensate for 214 million US dollars. But this is the kind of issues that we're seeing with this government. And, we continue to tell citizens that we must speak up, we must come out, we must talk about these issues as we're dealing with it. I see another comment here. To settle all issues in Guyana, we need to have general and regional elections as early as possible so that the nation can have a legal government. I totally agree with you on this matter, because at the rate we're currently going as a country, and every day there is another issue. Every day, every sector has an issue of failure and incompetence being showed, and corruption by the government. And, indeed, when you look at all the issues pending, no matter how much you sit and you talk and you talk and you try to help to correct, we're having the same issues. So I, like my viewer, believe that, we the only thing that will solve this issue is an election where citizens of this country will focus on the issues. They will understand what they have been experiencing over the last 3+ years, the level of incompetence in every sector of government that we're seeing, and understand that there is better for this country, and they must decide to go out and vote for better, because we cannot keep up. We talked about the Ministry of Education um yet last week, I believe it was. There is the issue in the education system, there's the issues in the public work system, which are great and many. You're seeing all this infrastructure money being placed and works being done. Every 2 weeks after a road is done, you need more repairs. A month, 3 months. We're seeing what is happening on the East Bank Road. We've seen the amount of times the area by Grove and Craig has been repaired and it's back to the same state. We recently saw the issue at what we would call at Providence there, the Red Road, and the minister blamed the stockpiling of blocks, bricks to the right hand side for that. And one begs to think, even if, because I don't know what is the justification to say that it was the rocks that caused the road to raise. But even if that was the case, didn't your contractors, didn't your engineers understand how much load they could have put on that one side? Here again, I call it incompetence. There's so many issues with roads and infrastructure. And then, in addition to that, we have the issue where we're dealing with the Guyana Power and Light Company, which has become one of the I don't know, we can say worse agencies, institutions that Guyanese have to deal with on a daily basis because we're having constant blackouts. You're having, in some cases, in one day, you're having 6 to 4 blackouts. Person having blackouts for 10 10 hours, 6 hours. These things are unacceptable when we are talking about being the fastest growing economy in the world, when we are seeing a budget of almost $1 trillion, and we're probably looking to have another supplemental before the year is out that may push us to that $1 trillion. And we are seeing Gordon Mosley does that thing he does in the morning, what frets you. And if you go under those comments, you can basically pin out the major issues. You see the issue, many persons see the issue of JAGDIO, GPL, and GWI is becoming a sore as well. We're seeing major issues as well in the water sector, and some of it which may rightfully be a spill off of what is happening at GPL as well. I mean, in terms of persons not getting water, but you also have the issue of the condition of the water when you do get water. And, there's so many issues that are pending. A person here says Anand Prasad do not know anything about local government. He only knows about the cinema. Uh, well, I'm not sure about the cinema story, but definitely based on his operation with this issue, I do believe he has clear issues in understanding what the operation of those local authority areas should be. Another point that I should have noted, that one of the things as well we saw when the PPP took over that NDC, which it is, you can't understand how it got there, but you see the NDC now handing out documentation where instead of having the NDC number on the letterhead, we are seeing them placing a number for the RDC office, and specifically the number appears to be the number of the REO's office. And when questioned on the matter, the officers at the NDC are saying that they are told that this is what they must use rather than giving out the numbers for the offices. So when persons receive correspondence and need to get onto that NDC instead, they'll be calling the REO's office. And these are serious issues with democracy, and we must not take these issues lightly. We must not take these issues lightly when we are, looking at what we should do. You know, every week I tell you that as citizens, we have our responsibility. As citizens, we have our own responsibilities outside of the politicians. It is our responsibility to hold our politicians, and particularly our government, no matter who that government is, it is our responsibility to hold them accountable. And the many issues that we are seeing that are being um, looked at currently in this administration, it is our right to call the government out on these issues and have it corrected. And we must not feel bad when we post on Facebook or we talk about an issue and it is being addressed. And as well, when we speak out and they come to our areas to correct the things that they did wrong, we accept it because it is their responsibility as government, and they should not come and speak to us as though they're doing us a favor when they come in to correct an issue. As Guyanese, we have to let them know you're not doing me a favor. I'm a part of the mechanism that placed you there, and you have the responsibility, and it is your obligation by law to take care of the issues that are being faced in our communities. So this thing that Ali and Jackie is running around, when persons complain here and there about issues and they're running to fix, thank you. But it is your responsibility as the government to do it. And I don't owe you extra praises or anything further for doing the job that you are placed in that seat to do. And as Guyanese, I hope we can get that part, and we understand and we let them know that when they come, we are thankful for the work that you do, but it is your responsibility. I saw a flyer, and let me see if I can find it here, where the president was actually going to, is not the vice president, as a matter of fact, the second vice president was going to meet with community members in regards to rehabilitation of grounds in communities and community centers, etc. And here again, what we are seeing is the neglect of the local authority systems, that this should have been worked through, that we are not having that happen. Rather, the VP feels that he wants to sit to be Lord over things, and you must come to him and beg him to do some work, and then that work gets done. And then when we're finished with that, we say, oh, all hail Barrett Jack Dio. It's not going to happen. It is not going to happen, because those responsibility lies in the hand of the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, who should be in engagement with the NDCs and the RDC of areas to ensure that grounds and community centers have the necessary works done, and they should be holding consultations with the residents to ensure this is what the residents of that community wants, and not Jagdio going and sit at Arthur Chong Center and inviting a couple of his friends and people that he wants to give things out to, and say, okay, we're going to give you a contract for this, and we're going to give you a contract for that, and this is what we're doing. It should not be done like that. We have systems in place, procurement systems as well, that should be followed when we're handling these matters. Again, I want to say that it is time as citizens that we begin to raise these issues and hold the government accountable, and hold the government accountable on these issues. At this point, I can't even see my time to be sure how much more time I have. I have to ask my operator. Okay, so I have about 5 more minutes to wrap up with you. Um, there was a comment that I was about to read, and then my phone died on me. But these are the issues that we are dealing with in regards to what we're seeing. And I'm saying, when you have issues arising in your community, you can make contact as well. You message us on our social media platforms as well, and let us hear what's happening so that we can also highlight those issues, because we have to have the issues corrected. We have to have means and ways of fixing what we are seeing happening and to deal with them. The issue I remembered, I believe it is in the LBI area and a few other areas. We are there. They're talking, and I believe I saw a notice as well for Georgetown, where we have the issue with the GWI and the water, because water has been out in some cases, in some communities, more than 6 hours. Some communities are seeing water for a short period in the morning and the afternoon. We cannot continue to accept these things. I see one viewer would have said, our healthcare system our healthcare system is definitely becoming a sore issue, and we're dealing with a crisis there, because while under the coalition we saw a decrease in maternity deaths and the general neglect and issues there, we're seeing an increase. We saw a story of a young lady talking about the loss of her son. I think it is at the West Dem Hospital, who they should have transported to Georgetown Hospital some time before that incident took place. And there were all sorts of reasons that they gave and what the nurses said and who didn't say. And then they had issues with getting an ambulance to take the child to Georgetown Hospital. And that child lost his life. And these things cannot be acceptable in this day and age. It cannot be acceptable. And looking at the comment, yes, that person would have said that the healthcare system, we have also seen during that time that a lot of new cases, maternity death cases, I should say, we saw an increase in those cases at the Georgetown Hospital, the New Amsterdam Hospital, particularly. And these are things that must be addressed seriously. In fact, I don't know when last I have seen the Minister of Health make any statements or in any regard to health issues, despite these complaints are coming rampantly. We had a period where we were dealing basically with the what we will call now breaking malaria, not malaria, dengue. And it took us a very long time before we heard from the Minister of Health. And here again, we have all these issues emerging. People are talking again about the lack of drugs at health centers. Even I recall visiting a particular health center, and they were saying that they didn't even have syringes to administer their drugs. These are serious issues that need to be addressed. And every day, all we're seeing is the incompetence of this regime. And I want to continue to plead with our viewers, to continue to plead with Guyanese citizens that we have the responsibility to hold our government accountable. We have the responsibility to hold our government and our politicians accountable. And it will take some effort by the citizens as the politicians to ensure that the issues are highlighted, that the issues are addressed, and then when the time comes for action, it's not for us to sit at home and debate who should have done this and who should have done what. It will be a time for us as citizens of this country to decide that we will act, and we will act justly, and we will act based on what we have been dealing with. Today, I'm out of time, I believe, already. But let me take one other comment. I see here this person says 20 more Venezuelans were held this morning. And yes, now it's becoming a thing where we see every day now We're seeing issues, particularly, I think it's in Region 1, where we're having many boats coming in. I believe it's about 20 to 24, based on the news report this morning, that were held in Region 1. And now we're seeing a ramp up of this, and we're seeing this happening every single day, you know? I am basically out of time today, but of course, I want to thank my viewers who um, came on. You shared our page and you were following. And for those of you who engaged in the comments, next week, I hope to have a special guest where there are some other issues that are very, very important that we need to be discussing, and I want to have that conversation next week with a very special guest. I won't tell you this week who that guest is, but what I want to implore you is to ensure that you join me next week, 12:30 to 1:30, and all our platforms here again on Channel 6, as we continue the discussions, as we continue to educate and highlight many of the issues that are happening currently in our country, so that we'll be able to deal with and address in an appropriate manner. I want to thank my viewers today once again, and I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.